Hare Krishna, dear devotees. My obeisances to you. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yatapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutan Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gourange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutadevi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Shri Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swamini Tinamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastachadeshatarine Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, thank you very much for having me in your association again to read and discuss Srimad Bhagavatam. And today we are on chapter 13, as Prabhu has mentioned, of Canto number 7, a most intriguing title of the chapter, The Behavior of a Perfect Person. We all have some aspiration in our lives for some type of perfection. That's the nature of us as living entities. And ideally, we are offering ourselves on the path of bhakti to the Lord. So just like in the path of bhakti, whenever we offer anything to the Lord, be it a bhoga offering or a poem or a prayer or an outfit, we want to offer the Lord the best, the choicest, the best we can offer. That is bhakti. Although Krishna doesn't need it, but we want to offer it as an expression of our love. So ultimately, we are also offering ourselves to the Lord. So we want to offer the best version of ourselves to Krishna. Not someone who is broke, not someone who is plagued with all types of material desires, not someone who is agitated, but we want to offer ourselves in the purest form that we can to Krishna. That should be our aspiration. Not for some self-aggrandizement so that people will praise us. Look how perfect he is, how well behaved he is, how gentlemanly he is. No. We want to become the best version of ourselves because, and mainly because, we want to offer the best version of ourselves to Krishna. That makes sense? Yeah. So this chapter, even without reading the verses, presents a wonderful opportunity for us to hear and imbibe. Now, interestingly, I just want to make a few points before we jump into the chapter. Interesting, the link between this chapter. Prabhu, can you make me co-host in case I want to show any slides? Okay. So let's just start off with the link between this chapter and the previous chapter. As we discussed previously, Bhagavatam, there's a saying called Bhagavat Pravaha, the flow of the Bhagavatam. Just like a river flows, the Bhagavatam is a river of nectar, transcendental nectar. So in the same way, the entire Bhagavatam flows from one chapter to the other chapter very, very beautifully. Very, very beautifully. So in the previous chapter, Sri Narad Muni was talking about the perfect society based on the 4 spiritual classes. And towards the end, Sri Narad Muni has been explaining about the duties of the brahmachari and the vanaprastha. So in this chapter, continuing with the same mood, Sri Narad Muni describes the conduct of a sannyasi. And how does he do it? He does it in a very beautiful way. Sri Narad Muni is so expert. Like a lot of the Bhagavatam conveys, some very deep and sometimes complex spiritual subject matter in the form of conversations between different personalities. So Sri Narad Muni, he conveys the conduct of a sannyasi through a conversation between Prahlad and a renounced person. Now, sometimes we may think, oh, okay, I'm a grihastha, I'm a householder. So this chapter may be not so relevant to me. If it's going to be talking mostly about conduct of a sannyasi, the conduct of a renounced person, less applicable to me. To think like that would be a mistake. Would be a mistake. Why? Because bhakti requires renunciation. There's a beautiful verse in the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, where Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he says, renunciation is the basic principle sustaining the lives of Sri. Or Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, renunciation is the basic principle sustaining the lives of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's devotees. Seeing this renunciation, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is extremely satisfied. And we know in many examples how Sanatana Goswami, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was urging him on to become more and more renounced, and even Raghunath Das Goswami. So renunciation is the basic principle of the followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now someone may challenge the whole science of devotion is contained in the book Nectar of Devotion. And Nectar of Devotion, Srila Rupa Goswami gives 64 items of sadhana bhakti. Someone may say, nowhere do we find in those 64 items renunciation. Renunciation. But vairagya, renunciation, although not an activity, it is an intrinsic quality. And we'll talk a bit more as we discuss this chapter. So let me just go back to my slides. So let's just look at an overview of this chapter. So this chapter is containing 46 verses. So it's relatively a lengthy chapter, one of the more lengthy chapters in the Bhagavatam. So this chapter is broken essentially into two parts. The first part is the qualities of a sannyasi, and that's text number 1 to 10. And the second part is a conversation between Prahlad and an Avadut Brahmana. We know in spiritual understanding there is Gyan and Vigyan. Gyan means theoretical knowledge, and Vigyan means realized knowledge. So you can say in one sense, the first part deals with like Gyan, and the second part deals with Vigyan in terms of a living person who's a practitioner of renunciation. So the chapter starts off with the qualities of a sannyasi. And then it moves on. Well, it starts with qualities of like in terms of conduct, and then consciousness. Verse 1 and 3 is conduct, and verse 4 to 6 is consciousness. Now, conduct is more external, so to speak, and consciousness is internal. Conduct is what we see, but consciousness is not something we can really see. It's like, we can really never know how advanced anyone is in their spiritual life. Prabhupada said, generally, the best and only way we can probably know is when the person speaks. When the person speaks, what's deep in the heart comes out. But conduct, anybody can fake it. Well, a lot of people can fake it. So let's just look at conduct, more of the externals. We'll go through it very quickly. And again, look at this, not from, we are talking about a sannyas. Not so much for me. Let's look at it from the point of self-reflection, how this applies in my life. So the first one is detached, merely keeping the body inhabitable, not dependent on anything material, travels on earth, passing only one night in a village. So we have to have this consciousness of not being attached to the body. I'm in danger here of getting too carried away. So maybe I won't go into everything. In terms of garments, he wears only a loincloth. And when there's no necessity, he doesn't even worry about a danda. Sometimes even a danda, one can get attached to. Wandering alone. This is something we should get used to. Being alone. On the path of spiritual life, we needs to be comfortable with also being alone at times. Then begging alms, being satisfied with what comes on its own accord, being self-satisfied, not dependent on anyone else, a well-wisher for all living entities, and the most important, completely surrendered to Lord Narayan. We used to do a course called the Bhakti Sadachar course. And one of the modules was the 26 qualities of a devotee. I'm not sure if any of you did this course. Very interesting, the 26 qualities of a devotee. But it is said out of all of those 26 qualities, there's one quality is the most important, and that is Krishnaika Sharana. That a devotee is surrendered to Krishna. Surrender to Krishna, being a devotee, is the one quality from which all other qualities emanate. So, first and foremost, one should be completely surrendered to Narayan. Narayana Parayanaha. Okay, so that's the conduct. Now let's just talk about the consciousness. This is like the important part. So there's a total of 6 aspects of the consciousness. Now, before I go into it, let's have a bit of interaction, dear devotees. Tell me, in your own words, what do you think would be the internal consciousness of one who is detached or renounced? And let's see how much correlates with what the Bhagavatam is saying. Anyone, you can raise your hand or you can just speak out. What would you think? What aspects of the consciousness, in your view? Think of yourself as a renounced person. I'm sure many of you are already renounced, but even maybe the perfection of your renunciation. What would you think to be the foremost part of your consciousness?
Look at everyone equally, see everyone as equals and not judge anyone.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that's a form of like detachment as well, not attached to anything or anybody.
Yes, very much so, my Mataji, Moini Gopika. Actually, interestingly enough, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has written a book, Vrindavan Mahima. And in that book, he lists out what are the qualifications for one to live in Vrindavan. And one of the qualifications he writes is one should see all living entities as one's own child. As one's own child. So very nice. Anything else from anyone?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Perhaps a sense of peace and not be affected by the ups and downs and the challenges in this material world.
Nice, very nice. Anyone else?
We would go beyond I, me, and mine.
Beyond I, me, and mine? Yeah, very much so. Nice. Anyone else? Okay, let's see what Bhagavatam says. First, he sees the Supreme Lord pervading everything, everywhere. Pervading everything. That means wherever he looks, he sees Krishna in the form of his energy, in the form of his person. Second, he sees as everything resting on the Supreme. Everything, that means everything is dependent on Krishna. So the first one is everything is a manifestation it's of Krishna's energy. He sees Krishna pervading everyone. The second one, he sees that everything is resting. Krishna is the foundation. Next, and very interesting, he understands the self during deep sleep, dreaming, and waking states. Now that's an interesting one. While sleeping, he sees the self. That means in all aspects, we see ourselves as the soul and not the body. Next one, he realizes that bondage and liberation are actually illusionary. Now, this is an interesting one. No difference between bondage and no difference between illusionary. Now, someone can say, oh, that's awkward. Clearly, there is a difference between bondage and liberation. The point being here is that this concept of being in bondage is like a dream. So the reality of the soul is always the same. This thing about being bound or liberated is simply a product of illusion. Next one, observes the power of time that causes appearance and disappearance of all beings. Knowing that time, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, of time I am. We are all under the supreme control of time. And we do not, therefore, praise life or praise death or deplore death or deplore living. We all understand that it's simply a product of time. I mean, just these verses 4, 5, 6, we can spend days, but just an overview. And then we move on to verses 7 to 10, the qualities of a sannyasi. Now, this is really interesting. Now, it's interesting for us, mainly obviously for our own selves, because it can tell us if we are going astray, and also in how we may regard others. Now, the first one is a person in the renounced order of life rejects all literature that has nothing to do with spiritual life. The second one is disciples, not very attached to having too many disciples. The third one, not very eager to read lots of books, accumulate a lot of knowledge, so one can be recognized as a great orator. And the fourth one, not very eager to build big temples. Now, someone may say, oh, but why? Why not eager to build big temples? Once Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master, had built a very nice temple in Bagh Bazaar in Calcutta. All of the temple was made out of marble. And once Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, if I can sell all the marble in the temple to print books, I would think that is a better use. Because building big temples, we don't want to attract the wrong people. People attracted to opulence. So, yes, that is an interesting one. And then the Paramahamsa stage. Just want to check my time quickly. Oh, it's already half past. And then evident purpose. He never discloses itself. It is said in spiritual life, always keep your bhajan to yourself. Don't disclose to other people, oh, I'm chanting 64 rounds. Or I've read all of the Bhagavatam 5 times now. Or I've been to Vrindavan parikrama. Always keep one's bhajan close to one's heart. Now we move on to the next part. Sri Narad Muni.
Prabhu, can you just, define what bhajan is?
Bhajan. Bhajan means one's personal spiritual practices.
Okay.
You know, that could be reading, chanting, remembering. It's one's own personal spiritual practices. It is said, don't disclose that, don't announce that. Keep it close. Now we go into the practical part of the chapter. And this takes the form of Prahlad in meeting an Avadut Brahmana. Now, this word Avadut, anyone knows what it means? In our tradition, who was known as an Avadut?
Shiva?
Nityananda Prabhu.
Sri Nityananda Prabhu, yes. Why was Sri Nityananda Prabhu known as an Avadut? Why was Sri Nityananda Prabhu known as an Avadut? Because his behavior didn't conform to normal behavior. It was not conforming to the norms of society. He would jump into the river and roll with the crocodiles. He would try to drink milk from Mother Malini's breast. He would approach the craziest people. He was so much intoxicated with love of God, Sri Nityananda Prabhu, that he didn't conform to normal societal norms. So Prahlad meets such an Avadut. And how does he meet this Avadut? What was the characteristic of this Avadut he met on first sight? Dear devotees, you've read the chapter already. So what was his first vision of this Avadut that he confronted?
Is lying down or something?
Yeah, it was just like lying down on the ground, covered in dust. And he was in one position, not moving. Now, in our ordinary lives, do we normally ever see such a person? You're walking down the path, and here's a person lying flat on the ground, covered in dust, not moving. So that's society confronts an Avadut. So Prahlad being a greatly advanced person, it's only a great spiritual person can recognize another great advanced spiritual person. So Prahlad immediately thinks to himself, oh, this is no ordinary person. And Prahlad asks him a question, a very interesting question, full of innocence, not in an accusatory, judgmental way, where sometimes we may be prone to do. When we confront such a person, we were thinking, oh, so many incorrect thoughts may come. So Prahlad asks him, I'm looking at you, he says, but you do not seem to be working and earning a livelihood. But your body seems very stout, like that of a materialistic enjoyer. What does stout means? It means got nice fat arms, a little fatty, as Prabhupada would say, fatty arms, fatty body, fatty thighs. And Prahlad says, you don't seem to be working. You don't seem to have any money. But you have a nice fatty body. And in a very sweet way, he says, and you're lying down as looking inactive. And people are looking at your actions with disgust. I want to know more about you.
Please forgive me, wasn't it a python snake?
No,
He
this was, we'll come to that part, but he was almost like a python, yes.
Yes, thank
you. Yeah. So, Prahlad asks this in a very sweet way. And then this Brahmana in this unusual position, he says, I see you have spiritual vision. And you are aware of the different stages of life. And then he says, how do you know? You know internally who I am. He says, you know this because of your devotion. So this great person immediately is glorifying bhakti. And he says, although you know everything, you are asking some questions. And he's saying, Prahlad, this is the nature of saintly persons. They know everything. But for the benefit of others, they ask questions. So he glorifies Prahlad in these three beautiful ways, that you have spiritual vision, you have devotion, and you know everything, but you're still asking me questions. And then the Brahmana goes into verses 20 to 34, something that I find really important in my spiritual life. And that is to always be in touch with the reality of our situation. As householders, as working class people, because of our association, we always have this tendency to not be so much in touch with our reality. So he goes into this very beautiful verses 24 to 34 now. I'll just touch on a few of them because of time, but it's always so nice to read these parts of the Bhagavatam. For me, whenever I need to be sobered up, I feel like I'm getting too much entangled in various aspects of material life, I like to go to these parts of the Bhagavatam, which really is a stark reminder of our reality. And the first thing he says is, desires cause transmigration. It's because of our desires and being carried away by our desires that we are suffering in this material world. So the first thing is a reminder to always have self-reflection at all times in our life. Where's my heart at the moment? What am I desiring? Am I being swayed now to get the latest phone? Am I being swayed now to get a better house? Am I swayed now to get some better fancy clothing? Am I being swayed? What is our desires? And it's material desires, which is the ultimate cause of our transmigration. Then the next part is the value of this human form of life we got. Human life is a junction. It's a junction in which we get opportunity. We get an unparalleled opportunity. And it's a reminder to us to always understand. You know, he said, every breath that passes, we go closer to death. Every breath. So how are we using this opportunity? Are we taking maximum use of this opportunity in our spiritual lives? Or not? And then it is said in this verse that material life is pavarga. And pavarga is represented by pa, ba, bha, ma. In the Bhagavatam, I think it's in the second canto, Prabhupada talks about this. So material life is pa. Pa means hard labor. Pa means foam in the mouth due to hard labor. Ba means disappointment from hard labor. Ba means fear of not knowing what is going to happen next. And ma means death. So all of us, this material existence, we go through this. We have to labor very hard. Pa. And by laboring hard, we work the body. And then hard labor never brings us happiness, but it only brings us disappointment. Ba. And then no matter what we try to do and why we're working hard, fear always plagues us. And finally, mrityu, death. Bhagavatam is so beautiful in this just one word, one verse, pavarga. We can see the entire story of material existence captured. Everyone in this material world goes through this. And 26 to 27. I abandoned material acts because I saw that a man and a woman unite for pleasure in sex, but actually they do not become happy. Again, the story, if we were to write everyone's life story, we can see everyone's life story in this material world more or less will mirror these verses 24 to 34. That people think, okay, just like Puranjan, the story of Puranjan in the 4th canto. Puranjan is wandering around thinking of how he can be happy, and he doesn't know what to do. And suddenly he comes across this lady. And when he sees her, he thinks to himself, maybe this is going to work. Maybe this is going to work. If this is going to give me what I'm looking for. Most people think like that. They meet a woman or they meet the opposite sex and they think, yeah, maybe this is going to work for me. But all they experience is the opposite. And the last one is forgetfulness leads to misery. Oh, sorry, not the last one. We forget, we go to misery. A futile search for happiness. And the example is given just like a deer. Cannot see the water within a caverned well, but it runs after the mirage. The conditioned soul cannot see happiness within oneself, but sees he can find it outside, externally. The futility of enjoyable material objects. Then even if we do become very successful in material life, when we accumulate a great amount of wealth, another problem comes, and that's the insecurity of losing that wealth. Rich man's insecurity. And then he concludes by saying an intelligent person should give up desire for prestige and money. So very beautiful verses 24 to 34. And as I said before, it is in these verses we will find the story of everyone in this material world besides the pure devotees. So then moving on to the last six, the verses 35 to 37, he talks about two gurus. And very interestingly, who are the two gurus he talks about?
B and the Python.
The bee and the python, yes. Now, why is the bee a very good guru for us? Who can explain? What deep spiritual instruction do we get from the bee?
Because when he gathers the honey, he will be killed anyway. He's going to lose everything at the second. That's why it's momentary. They live for now and not thinking that I have to gather because of the future.
Yes. Now, the bee's life story is very simple. The bee works very hard, collecting pollen, going to its hive, and mystically creating this very sweet honey. But in most life stories of the bee, that hard labor comes to nothing, because some human being or some animal like the bear will come and snatch away all the results of its hard labor. All of the results of his hard labor. But the bees are very detached. The bees have to be very detached because that is the nature of its existence. So we should also live life in that consciousness that any time, by providence, by karma, all that we have labored for very hard will be taken away. 100%. 100% certainty. Everything that we labored hard for will be taken away. If we are not detached, when that happens, it's extremely painful. It's extremely miserable. Just like, today, if we find out that someone has stolen our car, there'll be so much of trauma. Or today we find out I lost my phone in the train or in the bus or in the supermarket. Oh my God, we see people out become, oh, my phone. I don't know, where's my phone? Anybody seen my phone? Anyone see my phone? I can't find my phone. People go crazy. Or you find out you go home, your house is burnt down. Or the doctor tells you, you got a serious infection in your leg, we've got to amputate your leg. Individually, each of these events will be so traumatic for us. But imagining death at the time of death, simultaneously in one moment, everything that we attach to, our phone, our car, our house, our family, our clothes, we can go on and on. And most importantly, this body. If we are not detached, it's an extremely painful process. But if we detached, the example Prabhupada gives is like the coconut. The flesh of the coconut detaches from the shell. But the person who is detached from the body doesn't feel anything. So the bee example, extremely important. And next is the python. What does the python teach us? Very important. Chandukanya Mataji, what does the python teach us? Why is the python like a guru? I'm asking you, sorry to pick you out. I can just see your name here and I know you. Yeah. I don't know, is everyone still awake? I've
And
bored.
sorry, it's Vanita Mataji here. It stands still.
Okay, standing still, but there are many things, there are many living entities like trees stand still for their whole lives. But what else about the python?
It's satisfied with whatever comes its way. Like he doesn't go looking for food.
Yes.
I'm not sure.
Yes. Yes. The python, one of the qualities of the python is it's satisfied. It is satisfied. Whatever comes of its own accord to the python, he'll happily grab it. But the python remains satisfied in one place. Pythons are a bit lazy, they remind. So the python is not desiring to possess more. And whatever is achieved on its own accord, if I do not get it, I'm not agitated. So this quality of being satisfied, actually, it is one of the most important qualities we can have. Because when we are satisfied, it stops the hankering and lamenting. And when the hankering and lamenting is stopped, external material desires, which ultimately lead, as we explained and discussed in text 24 to 34, it's the root cause. The entire process of material entanglement gets curtailed. If we can just be satisfied, if we're satisfied with whatever has come, we'll be able to live simply. And we're moving towards the end now. The lifestyle of an avadut brahmana. Interesting and again, relevant and applicable. Eating habits. The avadut brahmanas philosophy in life was not I live to eat, but I eat to live. There are many people, their philosophy in life means that is where their joy and satisfaction comes from, eating. Always looking for better cuisine, always spending so much of time trying to create something new just for the tongue. That's the first thing. Second thing is dressing habits. Whatever is available, I'm satisfied with that. Sleeping habits. And this again, in the very beginning of the second canto, Shukadev Goswami says, what is the need of a pillow if I have my elbows? So again, not looking for very sophisticated means for sleeping. And travels. Sometimes I bathe nicely, decorate with sandalwood pulp. And other times I may just be naked. That's fine. And then the last part of this chapter, I think we're doing okay. Giving up the material body and self-realization. The verses 42, I can classify it as being non-judgmental, avoiding false discrimination, and being a well-wisher. We as living conditioned souls, one of our big tendencies is to judge people and classify them in a certain way, which is not good for our spiritual life. Because the moment we judge, it leads to criticism. Recognizing people have different mentalities and having this consciousness, I desire everyone's welfare. I desire everyone's welfare. Meaning there's no good and there's no bad. Verses 43 to 44, fighting false discrimination. Maybe I haven't done it. It would be nice if I did it. Just go to the verses. Let me just go to these verses. I think we got a little time. I was just worried about the time. But let's just read it. 43 to 44.
Sorry, which verses do you want, Prabhu?
43 to 44. Oh, maybe I'll share it, Prabhu. I just got it now. Where am I? Why can't I share it anymore?
Oh, hang on, let me have a look.
Oh, don't know what happened.
Shall I just share it, Prabhu, then?
Yeah, please, Prabhu. Oh, no, I know where it is. Sorry, it was tucked away.
Just got it.
Okay, you're sharing it.
Okay.
The mental concoction of discrimination between good and bad should be accepted as one unit and then invested in the mind, which should then be invested in the false ego. The false ego should be invested in the total material energy. This is the process of fighting false discrimination. Huh? Who can explain that? How do we curb this whole tendency of fighting false discrimination? So it's saying, the mind concocts this is good and this is bad. First thing is, good and bad, there's no difference, it's one. And he says, this good and bad, which is invested in the mind, should then be invested in the false ego. What does that mean? We have three faculties. And again, this relates to surrender. And I'm going to explain this in terms of the surrender. We have three faculties. We have the mind, we have the intelligence, and we have the false ego. The nature of the mind is to accept and reject. The nature of the intelligence is to make plans for maintenance and protection. And the nature of the false ego is to be falsely proud. So surrender means instead of the mind deciding what is good and bad, the Guru and the Shastras and Krishna decides. Instead of the intelligence deciding how I should protect myself, how I should maintain myself, we surrender our protection and our maintenance to Krishna. And lastly, Atmanivedanam. We surrender everything, body, mind, and soul to Krishna. So, dear devotees, that was my interpretation or understanding of these verses. You're all learned and experienced devotees. Has anyone got another understanding of it? What this verse means? Okay. We can go to text number 45, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I couldn't unmute earlier on when you asked the question. However, it's actually pointing to the best position to be is as in an avadut or a sadhu's position. And we're not all sadhus or avadut, sorry. So how do we stand in what route? There's so many different routes. Sometimes you read different paragraphs saying different things. So what route do we take as a layman? We can surrender some part of our lives, but we cannot do without material existence.
Yeah.
So how do we reconcile in that sense where we can take one route that would possibly equate with our dude or the sadhus?
That's a very, very nice question, Janukanya Mataji. Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Jnana Ati Asuvairagya Jnanacha Ahaitukam. This is a verse from the Bhagavatam. And this verse is saying, by engaging wholeheartedly in the process of devotional service, Gyan and Vairagya, knowledge and detachment, two very essential ingredients for progress on the spiritual path. They come automatically to one who engages wholeheartedly in devotional service. The point I'm trying to make in relation to your question, and this is there in the Bhagavatam, and if we read this particular chapter very carefully, especially Srila Prabhupada's purports, we get this clue. And this clue is a lot of our cultivation of spiritual life is going to be internal. In this Kali Yuga, it is said, no one should take sannyas. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also advised the devotees not to necessarily leave home, but whatever position is, to continue. But what did Mahaprabhu say? Mahaprabhu says, chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, and whoever you meet, you tell them about Krishna. And then that internal purification, it's all about purification. Everything's about purification. All of these qualities and everything we discussed today, that's a natural part of our being. Naturally, just like this Prahlad met this avadut, in our natural position, that's how we all are. It's only that we've become covered, that we may think, oh, this is very remote from who I can be and who I am. You know, we read these verses, we think, oh, how nice, I admire this, but this is not me. But Prabhupada used to say, Krishna is supremely pure. If we want to join Krishna, we ourselves have to become pure. So we just have to have confidence in the path and the process and apply ourselves diligently to it. And ultimately, we are also Kripa Siddhis. We are hoping our perfection will come through mercy. To always be in the mood of praying for the mercy of the previous acharyas, praying for the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, praying for the mercy of our Guru Maharaj, and praying for the mercy of the Vaishnavas. We'll get the equivalent result. What is this Avadut Brahmana is describing? And it'll happen naturally. We don't have to be worried about how we'll get there. It will happen. Does it make sense to you, what I just said?
Hare Krishna. Yes, Prabhu. We need these lectures to remind us and reassure us that you know, we can take a position and be in a better place, be aiming to purity, perhaps. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So, Prahlad Maharaj, you are certainly a self-realized soul and a devotee of the Supreme Lord. You do not care for public opinion or so-called scriptures. For this reason, I have described to you without hesitation the history of my self-realization. So normally, as great saintly persons, they would not, as I said, reveal their bhajana. But he's telling Prahlad, because you are self-realized, because you're a devotee, because you do not care for public opinion or so-called scriptures, I have revealed to you my inner being, my inner thoughts, my history of my self-realization. Mahajana yena gata sapanta. The way to spiritual perfection is to follow in the path of the great souls. They've chalked it out. We don't have to reinvent it. So Sri Narada is relating the story in the context of Prahlad because it's setting out the process and the goal. So I'll stop here. How are we doing? Oh, I got over time, Prabhu. Sorry, I didn't realize. 4 minutes over. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhu. That was a beautiful recitation of this this chapter. Thank you so much. Excuse me. If anyone has any questions, please do raise your hand. If I can start off, if that's okay. There are times where people do not really, I mean, you're saying about give up desires, but there are people that do not recognize that they have desires, and it's that recognition, first of all. That's the first step of trying to give up desires, as you were saying. But how do you actually recognize, if you're in that sort of state that you do not believe that you have so many desires? How do you recognize that fact? It's a bit like someone smoking, if you know what I mean. You can tell them to stop smoking, but they will not recognize the fact that they're smoking or drinking, etc., etc. So how do you, the way to identify you have so much desires is to identify that problem first of all. So what should one do to recognize that problem of having too many desires?
Well, Bhagavatam gives the advice. We should associate with saintly persons. Just like, you know, they have Alcoholics Anonymous. And the drunk people go there. They have no clue that what their situation is. But by associating with people who have become cured, they make advancement. So in the same way, it's like our mirror to see ourselves is all clouded and misted up. We can't see ourselves. But by the association of devotees or great saintly persons, coupled with the process of hearing Krishna Katha constantly, then everything will be revealed. We'll see. Oh, yes, you know, I've been desiring the wrong things and I didn't even know it. Everything becomes clear by association and practice of Krishna consciousness, mainly the practice of hearing Krishna Katha and hearing Harinam.
Okay, thank you very much, Prabhu. Does anyone else have any questions at all? I think you've caught them on a very quiet day. They're quite okay. So Devi Mataji, Hare Krishna, if you'd like to ask your question.
Krishna, and thank you very, very much for today. When I start learning about Krishna consciousness and started to study the Bhagavad Gita and so on, the first thing I got to learn was especially chapter 10 in Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says, among these, I am that, among these, many, 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 many things. And one of the things he says is, amongst the senses, I'm the mind. And when he says that I'm the mind, for me, it sounds like Krishna always have control, always win, always have the first hand of controlling and have it the way he wanted to. So even though I'm trying to do my best, for instance, someone told me, just leave everything and travel to Vrindavan. Even though I really, really try to think about it, to see if I can plan it, it's almost that something blocking that that will or that mind of me to decide, okay, I do it. Here, I have to learn from Python, stand still, don't move. You know what I mean? So in Srimad Bhagavatam says, don't move. By not moving, it's better not to do it. It's better you stand still and do your devotional service and whatever. Stay still. Don't change. You know what I mean? Don't change the place. Don't change the country. Don't change the and so on and so on. So it's, for me, it's and I am far, far, far from being good in devotional service or in Krishna consciousness, and I learn about it well above the 50. So it, for me, it sounds like many, many, many lives I have to come just to come something, just to be some of this. You know what I mean? So how to understand this? Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. I'm trying to understand your question a bit more. Is your question mainly about how to become satisfied in my situation?
Control my mind. Control my mind.
Uh-huh. You know, the Vaishnava literature says, you know, what is the function of the mind that makes it so troublesome to us? And it is said that the function of the mind is to constantly accept and reject. I mean, that the mind is always saying, you know, this may be good for you. I think you should accept this. Or the mind says, I think this is not good for you. You should reject that. You know? So for a conditioned soul, the mind is always troubling the conditioned soul, mainly from that perspective. So what is the recommendation then? The recommendation giving, instead of the mind always concocting what to accept and what to reject, the mind just says, okay, from today onwards, I completely accept, I completely admit that I don't know what is good for me. I don't know what's bad for me. Right? From today onwards, I'll only accept what Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, in the Bhagavatam. Whatever Krishna's devotees say, whatever the spiritual master says, that I accept to be good or bad for me. So in your particular situation, should I go to India, to Vrindavan or not? May become a troublesome point for you. Should I stay here? Should I go? Should I try or not? Yeah. So we go to the Vaishnavas, we go to the spiritual master, and we say, you know what, I don't really know. Is this good or bad? You tell me what is good or bad. And then we, instead of the mind flickering, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, we accept what the Guru, the spiritual master, the Vaishnava say, and we pursue that. But ultimately, it's the decision of Srimati Radharani when she thinks we're ready to go to Vrindavan. So even despite whatever endeavor, it's not working, then we'll say the time's not right. You know, but the ultimate point of my response to your question is we have to surrender. We have to surrender. Not to the mind, but to the authorities and to Krishna. I don't know if I answered that question or not, but that's my limited ability to answer you.